Well, now I want to turn to Steve Sherrill for his series. What do you want to talk about? So, Steve, what do you want to talk about?
Tonight, I want to talk about etiquette in visiting layouts. And I need some input from the other people who were on the site tonight. I know when I go to people's layouts, I see other visitors touching motive power, touching cars, laying stuff on layouts. And I would like to know what other modelers are doing about that and how they control that situation. I find it kind of upsetting that other people take advantage of this type of thing. Especially it seems to be prevalent in the smaller scales, the HO, the N, and not so much in the O scale. Have other people found this to be a problem that they've noticed when they're visiting layouts or operating? Operating, I see it happen a lot when the uncoupling occurs on the trains. I know that some of the models that we've built are, contest quality and they're kind of fragile. And I see no need for this type of action to happen. Things like, again, putting drinks on the layout, leaning against the layouts, pushing against the fascia. You as a visitor, these things should not occur, I feel. Do other people have this same observation, or is it just me? I know that I've kind of been brought up in model railroading where you didn't touch anybody else's equipment without their permission. And I've seen some pretty bad things happen, especially when it comes to picking up locomotives and cars. I've seen people pick them up and just kind of squeeze them. So if I can get some input on this and how we can convey certain behaviors to visitors without, being nasty to them. And we always want to welcome them back. But I do believe that there should be some rules that we kind of enforce. And I find that the adults are worse than the children. No,
I got to agree with you because I used to have my layout open. I don't anymore. Or, it's very rare that I'll invite somebody over. But I used to. And the thing that griped me more than anything else were the people that had to lean against it. And they weren't just leaning against the side of it. It seemed like they just felt like they had to put their hand on it somehow.
Yeah.
And that to me was frustrating. And how you stop that, lots of luck.
Well, I don't know, if you're having something like a division meet or a visit from the division, maybe you could put something in the notes to please, don't handle the equipment. No drinks or anything on the layout, this type of thing. I don't want to run around and, watch everybody all the time. We're adults and I feel that, we worked hard for our layouts. I guess somebody like Martin, who does a lot of underbody detail and a lot of detail work. Well, somebody, all of a sudden wants to take a look. What are they going to do? They're going to bend the wiring underneath, or worse than that, punch the windows out, on the sides. It's a lot of work to repair this stuff. So I just need, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one with a layout on here that has people come and visit.
But what have
So-
you tried? What have you tried that worked?
Well, I kind of gently tell them not to lean against the layout, or being battery powered, I don't have to worry much about stuttering for electrical contact. I do use the dental thing to uncouple the cars. It works very good, and things like that. I just try to avoid that. And to be quite honest, I don't, unless it's an open house type of situation, I usually just invite people over here who I know are going to be courteous,
Hey,
Yeah.
Steve,
value my work as much as theirs. So,
Steve,
yes.
just tell everybody to carry a big fly swatter.
Yeah.
I think
You know-
a taser is appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure, after you have, you go to a train show and you have a layout that you've taken there, look how much repair work you have to do. And that's all not just moving the layout itself. Even on the little micros, you have to glue stuff back again, fix the cars and things like this. But
There's a couple
they're-
things.
they're-
There's a couple of things we did at, I was in N scale from 1967 to 2015, and I still have two N track modules. And we do two things at N track when we go to shows. One, sometimes we'll just rope off a distance between the layout and the N track module. Or we'll have a temporary flat acrylic plexiglass that we put up on some of the modules that are more detailed. We don't want people touching them. So we'll put a temporary flashing up there that they can't reach in and touch anything.
you can't do that on a home layout though.
No, I mean, for a show, you could temporarily.
Yes. But another thing that people who operate your railroad come over and they have a sweater on, which is a loose fitting,
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, that's just asking for trouble. And usually, the layouts that I've been to, they would tell them, I'm sorry, you can't wear a sweater, or, put your jacket over here. It's just, we work years for this stuff, and a guy can just damage it in 1 minute.
You just got to give the lecture before they walk through your layout. I had a visitor today on my layout, but my bench work's so robust. That you can lean against it. In fact, that doesn't hurt it at all. But it still could be damaged if somebody reaches their fingers in there and touches something. So I haven't had any.
Well, on my fascia, I've got card boxes. I've got holders for the controllers, old plugins. I've got manual switch controls sticking out. This kind of thing. So there's lots of stuff that can be touched. So
I'll tell you, this is Phil. I'll tell you a story. This is a ON30 modular story. So first module I built, wanted this great idea. Modules you're running from both sides. So I made the turnout so there was a push button on the fascia with I built a little circuit out of a latching relay so you could push either side and it would throw the turnout.
Mhm.
And I brought it in and everybody in the club said, wow, that was stupid. And of course the public pushed it. So I made up little plastic covers that were clear plexiglass that would hang over it. So you had to move the cover aside to push it. And they moved the cover aside. Then I painted the covers green so they were the same color as the fascia siding. So they were kind of not very visible, but they still pushed them. And I actually had one time, I was standing on one side of the layout running a train up to a turnout. And there was a probably mid-30s woman on the other side. And she was looking at me. She looked down at the switch. She looked up at me, looked down at the switch and pushed the thing aside and throw the turnout. So my engine ran into the switch turnout backwards and derailed. And so what I've done on all the new modules, and I have one of these I'll show on next week in the My Build. Actually just put I used a rabbit to run the tortoises, and you can use just a little simple switch. I actually mounted those in the scenery, those little tiny push button switches. And if you paint them and put them in the scenery, they're pretty much transparent. They're right next to the turnout. So you actually push them in the scenery. What you find is people don't reach into the scenery very much at a show like that. But yeah, the public, you have to kind of watch them like a hawk. It's especially when they have kids and they get the kids close.
But we used to have a designated re-railer. That was a guy who knew how to handle all the custom painted locomotives and cars. He knew how to handle them and put them on, rather than someone unfamiliar with it would be fumbling around with the equipment. And it worked out pretty good. But usually, a lot of good railroads don't have a lot of derailments. And if it is, it's because they failed to throw a switch, went against a switch or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the things I have on my layout, Steve, are their signs. And it says on the sign, "Keep your cotton picking hands off." And I really had no trouble.
I'm afraid we've lost him for the evening.
Mm-mm-mm.
Well, I'm sorry that happened, but nothing we can do about it. But I do think that was an interesting subject to talk about, because I think all of us, if we've opened our layouts, it used to be, one of the main problems that we used to have in contests, particularly, was you'd have people come in and want to pick models up, and they weren't judges necessarily. They just wanted to look at the models, and so all of a sudden you'd have people come by and look at the models and start picking them up, and parts would start dropping off and everything else. I don't think that's as much of a problem now as it used to be, but for some of us, that turned out to be a real issue that we had to deal with to try to keep people's hands off the models.